Please welcome author, leadership consultant, and coach, our keynote speaker, Mr. Stephen Van Cohen.
Sun beat down, I had the radio on, I was driving.
Thank you, everybody. I thought we can start by showing you the most powerful force on the planet. And believe it or not, it is not the blast from a volcano, or the fury of a hurricane, or the speed of the world's fastest computer, or even the unimaginable force that comes from an atomic detonation. This, my friends, is what real power looks like. This is the unbelievable power of human connection. Now, there is a moment that all of us long for, that moment when our heart recognizes a face that it's missed, when we get to feel that warm embrace and the relief from a hug of someone we care about, when we get to feel that emotional eruption that takes place when we're around the people that we love. It's these moments, the hugs, the tears, the drop to your knees reunions, that tell us something very, very important. It tells us that as humans, we are hardwired for human connection, that we all long to belong. Now, there is a chance that you are not going to be able to create the kinds of connections with your patients that drop them to their knees when they see you in your office, right? That's setting a bar really high. But there is a chance that you can tap into the power of human connection to heal those that depend on you. Now that brings us to our big idea today, which is this, is to discover how to fully connect with the people you serve, unleashing new levels of engagement, trust, closeness, and overall satisfaction within your practice. And we're actually going to learn what Robin Williams and Marbles and Bluey and Magic and the Red Hot Chili Peppers all have to do with building more meaningful connection. Now, over the next 45 minutes, I don't want to just talk about the importance of human connection. I actually want to have some little moments of connection among all of you. So we're going to do a couple of really short little exercises that I hope spark some connection as we go through our experience together. Here's the first exercise. I want each of you to think about somebody in your life who is highly connectable. Someone who is like really easy to get along with, someone whose company you enjoy, somebody who just lights you up when you're in their presence. I want you to think about who this person is and how they make you feel. And in a moment, when I give you the green light, I want you to turn to somebody you're sitting next to and just share who this person is and how they make you feel. I'm gonna have a timer on the clock. It's gonna be for 90 seconds. Exchange those people and how they make you feel, and then when you hear the chime, that's your cue to get back to stage. So go ahead and chat with your neighbors for a few minutes, and then we'll get back into our keynote. All right, so I'm not sure if you all noticed, right? I'm not sure if you all noticed, but the vibration in this room just went up a whole heck of a lot when you started to talk about the people who make you feel really good, right? Now, our goal with our time together today is to teach you some of the tips and tools in order to be more connectable with the patients that you lead and you serve. So let's start here with the first question. Our first question that we need to unpack is this: what is connection? In order to understand what connection is, we actually need to begin with the definition of loneliness, because loneliness is the opposite of connection. And loneliness has a very interesting definition, because loneliness is not defined by the absence of people, it's defined by the absence of connection. And we know this, right? Because we can be surrounded by people and we can feel incredibly alone. We need more than the mere presence of others in order to feel that sense of connectedness. Now, this sensation is summed up very beautifully by the late, great Robin Williams. He has one of the most heart-wrenching quotes in history. He said, quote, "I used to think the worst thing in life was to end up all alone. It isn't. The worst thing in life is to be surrounded by people who make you feel all alone." Like, that one stings a bit, right? It's this sensation of feeling invisible even though you're in the presence of others. Now, the next question we need to answer is this: so why is this also important, right? What's the significance of human connection? And in order to unpack this question, we're gonna do something fun. We're gonna do a quick little trivia activity. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to grab your phone. I need you to scan that QR code, or you need to go to polev.com/activate, polev.com/activate. And after you scan that QR code or go to polev.com/activate, you'll be put in a holding queue where you can put your name in. And then in a moment, I'm gonna activate our trivia. There are 4 questions that are gonna make up our trivia activity. The winner of our trivia exercise will get a signed copy of my book, Connectable, the Wall Street Journal bestseller, How Leaders Can Move Teams from Isolated to All In. So I will have this book handy and ready to give away as soon as our event ends. So scan that QR code, go to polev.com/activate, get the eye of the tiger. I can see you guys are excited and ready. Here we go. So you put your name in so we can see who's on top of our leaderboard. The way it's gonna work, team, is I'm gonna show you the question. You're gonna choose your answers. You're only gonna have 10 seconds. You gotta be really quick with those thumbs. I will reveal the correct answer, and then I'm gonna unpack that statistic in order to give it a little bit more context. So without further ado, are you ready? Yes. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. According to a study by Duke University, the most common number of confidants Americans say they have is what? Is it 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4? So the poll is getting ready, it's kicking in, it's warming up, guys. It's getting there, I promise, hopefully. Come on, magic computer. Let's try this one more time. Did that activate? Okay, thank you, team. Okay, technology. So here we go, 9 seconds, 8, 7, 6. So 5 seconds. According to a study by Duke University, the most common number of confidants Americans say they have is unfortunately 0. I know, right? That's not good. So here's what we know. We know that in the 1980s, researchers from Duke went out and they asked Americans, how many confidants do you say you have in your life? And in the 80s, the most common response was 3. In 2004, when researchers from Duke went out and asked the same question, the most common response was 0. And as you're gonna see in a few slides, our levels of loneliness and social disconnection have only been on the rise since then, meaning that a lot of the people that are coming into your practices, they're craving connection. And hopefully you can be part of their solution. So with that, here is our current leaderboard. Alex and ER and Paige are on top, but it is anyone's game. Let's jump into question number 2, which is this. Feeling regularly excluded over a 10-year period hurts our health to the tune of smoking how many cigarettes? You ready? Is it 10,000, 28,000, 44,000, 72,000, or 86,000 cigarettes? This is a big number. Sorry, team, I think the internet is being a little wonky. Okay, so 10,000, 28,000, 44,000, 72,000, or 86,000. You have 5 seconds to get those answers in. Okay, so we know that when someone feels regularly excluded, when they feel rejected, when they feel lonely, when they feel isolated, over a 10-year period, that actually hurts their health to the tune of smoking 72,000 cigarettes. It's a bit mind-blowing, right? But we know this thanks to the Harvard study of adult development. Many of you maybe are familiar with this study. It's the longest running study ever conducted in human history to figure out what is the strongest correlation to a long, healthy, and happy life. And for 86 years, researchers have tried to answer that question. What is the key to a long, healthy, and happy life? And for 86 years, researchers have followed around more than 2,000 people, measuring how healthy they eat, how much exercise they get, how much sleep they get, how much money they make, what they do for work, where they live. Every variable that you could possibly think of was put into this study, and they found that the strongest correlation to a long, healthy, and happy life, hands down, bar none, is the quality of our social connection. The reason being is that when someone feels socially disconnected, the part of the brain that registers that experience is the same part of the brain that registers physical pain. It's the part of the brain that flashes when you're being physically attacked, and your brain says, hey, you're in danger, you gotta do something. When your body kicks into fight or flight and floods its system full of all kinds of stress hormones, that chronic state is the equivalent of smoking 15 to 20 cigarettes a day, which over a 10-year period is equivalent of 72,000. So, all of you have an opportunity through your social interactions to help increase the health and lower the stress of the people who come to see you in your practices. So our leaderboard now looks like this. Alex is on a roll. Christina and Mandy have joined the top 3, but it is still anyone's game. You might know this one. The loneliest generation on the planet is whom? Is it Gen Z? Is it millennials? Is it Gen Xers, or is it baby boomers? The loneliest generation on the planet is whom according to Cigna? Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, or baby boomers? Okay, so we know from Cigna that the loneliest generation on the planet is in fact Gen Z, Gen Zers. Those are 26-year-olds and younger. Now here's something really fascinating. In 2019, pre-pandemic, Cigna found that 79% of Gen Zers sometimes or always feel lonely. And it's the first time in human history where the youngest generation had loneliness levels that superseded the oldest. That's never happened before, ever. The reason this is important for all of you is because if you can help create connections with the young people that come into your organizations and practices, you're gonna be an employer of choice or a practitioner of choice for many years to come. So here's our leaderboard. Stephanie has taken the lead. Mandy's right there. David from Colorado is in the mix. It is anyone's game though. Here's our last question for all the marbles. Lonely people are blank times more likely to suffer from depression. Is it 2, 3, 4, or 5 times more likely? Is it 2, 3, 4, or 5 times as likely? Our final question for all the marbles, 2, 3, 4, or 5 times as likely to suffer from depression. 2, 1, okay. We know that when people feel socially disconnected and lonely, they are in fact 4 times as likely to suffer from depression. Now, the reason this is important for all of you is obviously as practitioners, people are coming to heal probably more physical aches and pains, but in the process of healing their physical impairments, man, you can probably help with some of their mental health and well-being by building more meaningful connection in those interactions. So this is why all of this is so important. The quality of our connections is so important to our overall health and well-being. Without further ado, guest 648, whoever guest 648 is, our mystery guest, congratulations. You, sir, are our champion. Sir, you gotta come on stage now, give a speech. No, I'm just joking. No, you don't have to give a speech. That'd be a lot of pressure. But come find me right after the session in the meet and greet, and I'll hook you up with a signed copy of my book. Now, so we've laid the groundwork of what connection is, why it's important. Now the next question, which is, what's the state of it? How are we doing with regards to our connection levels? And in order to answer this question, I actually want you to go back in time. I want you to place yourself in your childhood home. I want you to go back to this childhood home and sit in front of what was likely a very large and super heavy TV, right? So many of you probably had huge TVs, and I want you to think about your favorite childhood TV show. So go back in time, think of your favorite childhood TV show, and then just indulge me, right? We're in the mood for connection. Talk to one of your neighbors and just quickly reveal whatever your favorite TV show was now. 15 seconds, go. Share with a neighbor your favorite TV show. Guys, that was perfect. That was perfect. I could feel the nostalgia. I can feel the nostalgia. I can see you're smiling. You're remembering some of your childhood favorite TV shows. So here's what I want to do. I want you to compare what watching your favorite TV show was like as a child to mine. Because comparing how we watch TV in years ago as compared to 2025, it gives us a bit of a clue into how we're doing with our connection levels. So I was born in the 80s, I was raised by the 90s, and perhaps the greatest thing to have ever come out of the 90s is, of course, TGIF. Yes, I have some fellow 90s people here with me today. For those who don't know, TGIF was this awesome block of programming that was aired in Friday afternoons with the goal of watching TV with the family, right? And I remember my favorite of these shows was Family Matters. Urkel could do no wrong. He was always getting into mischief, turned into Urkelbot, Stefan, into shenanigans. So I loved watching Urkel. Now I remember in the 90s watching Family Matters with my siblings, and if ever there was an unexpected ringing of the doorbell, this was the process, right? So doorbell would ring, we would immediately rush to the door as fast as we could. We would slide up to the door in our socks and our linoleum floors like Tom Cruise in Risky Business. We would peek behind the curtain to see who it was, and we would open the door because someone was just in the neighborhood. They just popped in, they said hello, and we stopped whatever we were doing, right? We couldn't pause Urkel. He was doing his thing on the TV while we gave our undivided attention to this guest in front of us. Now, if we compare the protocol in 2025 for an unexpected ringing of the doorbell, very different, right? So now, I have two small kids. We watch a lot of Bluey in my house. If their doorbell rings and I didn't get a text message ahead of time alerting me that there was a human on the way, this is what happens, right? I shush my girls. I throw a blanket on top of them to make sure there's no movement from outside the house. And I hope, guys, I hope it's an Amazon delivery driver and not like a human that I now need to interact with. This coming from the guy who wrote the book about the importance of human connection, right? So there's something we have to unpack here. It gives us some clues. Here's what we know. We know that 58% of adults right now today say they feel lonely on a consistent basis. 72% of workers around the world say they feel socially disconnected at work every single month. 55% say they feel socially disconnected at work every single week. There's been a 154% decrease in the number of people who say they have at least 10 friends in their life. And the most alarming is Cigna measures loneliness levels across all the different demographics that you can imagine. They look across sexual orientation, they look at religion, they look at socioeconomic status, they look at race, they measure everything. And for 100% of all of the demographics, there's been a decrease in the social interactions that have been happening over the past 10 years. Huge alarm bells, right? To say that this is a problem impacting so many people. Which leads us to our final question, which is, what do we do? How can we actually build more meaningful connection with the people around us? And in order to do that, there's a model we created, right? And the model we call the Be Connectable model. And in our research, we found that people who are really easy to connect with, people who are highly connectable, they do three things exceptionally well. The first thing they do is they're really good at seeing the people in front of them. They're able to quickly build out some intimacy, some closeness, some rapport. They're able to get in sync, meaning that they're able to be on the same page, make that person feel understood. When two people are not on the same page, that creates a lot of distance between them. And then they're very good at providing support, helpfulness, encouragement, compliments. They're really good at making people feel like they matter. So these are the three things that our research found out. If you can better see people, get in sync with people, and support people, you're gonna be on an amazing connection journey. So let's dive into each and give you one strategy for how to make sure that you improve upon each of these three S's. The first is how to make people feel seen. This is my favorite of all the strategies. And in order to give some context around how we can make people feel seen, we're gonna take a page out of the great Brené Brown's book. So many of you probably know Brené, she's amazing. She's the foremost thought leader in all things trust, vulnerability, and belongingness. And she has this really cool analogy that she calls the marble jar. And she says, most people think that in order for trust and connection to take place, we have to go through what are called prove it moments. That until you prove yourself worthy enough of my trust and connection, it's not gonna happen, right? We're not gonna really get there. But she says the research is overwhelmingly clear, it's not a big moment. It's not a prove it moment. Trust and connection is built in very, very small moments that compound over time. She calls these marble jar moments. She says, imagine you and somebody else have this empty jar of marbles between you. In order for trust and connection to be built, you have to do little thing after little thing after little thing, marble after marble after marble, until eventually you've filled up their jar. This then means that it's kind of tricky for connection to be built. And as hard as it is, you do one thing to knock that jar over, all those marbles spread out all over the floor, you're back to square one, marble after marble after marble. This then means that everything we do and everything we don't do is either putting marbles in or taking marbles out of the jars of the people around us. This means if we want to see the people and build trust and connection and belongingness, we have to have an awareness and an intentionality for how to do that in the right ways. The good news is there's a process. It's basically the compounding of interest for these marble jar moments. They're called pro-social behaviors. Pro-social behaviors are defined as acts of comforting, sharing, helping, or cooperating that are backed by a general concern for the feelings, welfare, and rights of other people. It's when you're able to ask somebody an insightful question so they get the sense that you really care about their answer. When you give them their undivided attention so they know you're in that moment. When you can provide empathy so they feel understood. When you can gift some kind of encouragement or affirmation to make them feel like they matter. It's all of these kinds of things that build feelings of connection, which is very different than the kinds of transactional exchanges that we tend to have on a regular basis. When we're communicating back and forth and sharing plans, ideas, and information, all of that activity gets processed in the frontal lobe, part of the brain that registers data and information. Very different than feeling connected. When we feel that sense of connectedness, that actually takes place in the insular cortex, back part of our brain, totally different region. Connection tends to be dealt, connection tends to be felt. Now, the absolute guru of connection and pro-social behaviors is, of course, Oprah Winfrey. Oprah is a master when it comes to building these meaningful connections with the people that she gets to collaborate with and interview and have on her show. Now I'm gonna show you a clip of Oprah displaying 7 of these very, very subtle pro-social behaviors. Your goal is to see if you can spot all 7. So here we go.
Thanks for coming, sis. We're all so happy that you're here. I very much appreciate it. Oprah, this is your first time on the show. Thank you for being here. I don't know, my worry when I woke up this morning is I don't know if I can make it through this interview without crying.
You will.
Because you seem to have an unbelievable gift. Even now, I can feel myself cheering up. When did you first realize you had this power just to make people cry?
I think I was in Baltimore. I used to try, you know, as an interviewer, you wanted that moment.
Right.
Where you could have someone open up, be vulnerable enough to actually have an intimate connection and cry. Now I try not to get people to cry.
Do you really?
Yes.
You withhold your power.
I withhold the powers.
I mean, Reese, you were on Oprah's show in 2005. How quickly did you cry?
Oh, I think it was like 5 minutes.
Really?
Or maybe 3. I definitely cried pretty quick.
Did you really? You just went, you cried?
Yeah, I think she said, I think you love books. And then I just started weeping.
No, I think it was actually about your teacher.
Oh, and then I talked about my teacher.
Because teachers can make you cry.
But you can say, like, even as you say the word book, like little wells come up.
Okay, go on. Give me your best. Give me your best. Unleash the power.
Well, you need some time, you know? It's about having some time. But let me just say for you, Charlotte, Carrie, Max. Once on my show, a father said, every father has a dream for his children.
Oh, shut up.
Every father has a dream for his children, and his deepest regret in life will be if he doesn't fulfill that dream for his children.
Oh, you're a joke?
What is the dream that you hold in your heart for Charlotte? For Charlotte? For Max?
Who are you?
For Carrie? What is the dream you hold?
I just want them to feel like this every day. You have to stop.
Okay.
All right, now, team. 7 very subtle pro-social behaviors. Let's unpack them really quick. 1, you maybe noticed there weren't any physical barriers between her and the guests. When Oprah does her interview, she's very intentional about usually sitting in a chair across from her guest with nothing in between. Because when there's physical impediments between us, it blocks the flow of energy that transfers from one person to the other. That's why it feels very different sitting around a conference room table than sitting in a circle with the same people with nothing in between. When there's nothing in between us, it creates a little bit more of a vulnerable feeling, which is good for connection. Number 2, y'all noticed, right? Oprah is not looking at you. She's looking into you, right? She is giving you that eye contact to let you know that she is in that moment and nowhere else. Number 3, she leveraged the personal knowledge she had about James. I have no idea how close Oprah and James are, but by saying the names of his children, it shows that she cares. Either cared enough to do some homework before going on the show, or cared enough to remember the names if they had exchanged in passing. Either way, when you can introduce something you know about the person in a question or a statement, it makes that person feel validated and seen. Number 4, she physically leaned towards the people she was talking to, very subtle, but she's like this. She slightly tilts towards that person. That little tilt lets that person know that she's ready to listen. Number 5, she's a paraphrase master. At the beginning, he says, Oprah, you're a firstie. And she says, yep, I'm a firstie. And then he says, you mean to tell me you withhold your powers? And she says, yes, I withhold my powers. She does this thing called looping for understanding. She's able to weave those words back in to let that person know that she hears and understands where they're at. Y'all picked up on this one, right? The next one, a lot of touching going on. Now, I do not recommend that you start caressing the faces of the people that come into your practice. Guys, face caressing, total no-no, right? Don't do that. But touch is interesting because our bodies release dopamine and serotonin when we're in a state of embrace. So face caressing is a no-no. High fives, handshakes, fist bumps, the appropriate hug, the appropriate pat on the back, any of those appropriate touches might build more meaningful connection. And then last but not least, she's all in. You can tell she is nowhere but in that moment with you. And we've all experienced when someone gives us that undivided attention and makes us feel seen, how powerful that can be. So our first strategy is if we're gonna create more meaningful connection, we need to connect like Oprah. Our second strategy is all about getting in sync. Because again, there's a lot of distance that occurs when two people are not on the same page or feel misunderstood. And very, very quickly, I wanna show you just how easily it is for us to not get in sync. So I need you to very quickly imagine a blank piece of paper in your mind. So just imagine there's a blank piece of paper. We're gonna do kind of like a mentalist thing, right? I want you to channel your inner mentalist. I want you to read my mind. And on this blank piece of paper in your mind, I just want you to quickly write your name. So just see your name somewhere on this piece of paper. I then want you to think about a tree. So just look at a little like cartoon tree on that piece of paper. I want you to come up with 2 shapes. So place 2 shapes on the piece of paper. I want you to write down the name of the best month to be born. So think about that month, see it on the piece of paper. And then I want you to write down the top genre of music. Okay, so on this piece of paper in your mind, you should see your name, a tree, 2 shapes, the best month to be born, and the best genre of music. Okay, you got it? You visualize it? You see it? Okay, now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna see if we actually got on the same page, because this is what I was hoping you would do, right? I was hoping you would have your full name in the bottom portion of the piece of paper. So give yourself 1 point if you had your full name. I was thinking of a palm tree, so give yourself 1 point if you came up with a palm tree. My shapes were a rhombus and a hexagon, so if you guys were thinking of rhombuses and hexagons, give yourself a point for that. Out of curiosity, how many of you chose your birth month as the best month to be born? Of course you did, okay? If you were born in August, congratulations. Yes, you get a point for that. And then obviously, guys, the best genre of music is, of course, 90s rap music. So if you had 90s rap music, now just quickly, show of hands. How many points did we get? How many? Just show them up. 1, 1, 1, 2, 0. Okay. It's a silly exchange, but we get the point. We make interpretations, we make assumptions based on our own unique experiences. We think we're in alignment when in fact we're not. So one of the ways to help get into sync with the people you interact with is to use a technique called the magic question. The magic question comes from this person. Her name is Zoe Chance. She's a professor at Yale. And she says so often when we try to convince people to do what we want them to do, we do our best to be persuasive. We try to come up with the exact right example or the exact right words to where I explain something to you in a way where you go, yep, duh, okay, I'm gonna do that. That's a no-brainer. But she says when we try to connect and influence in that way, there's a huge problem. The problem is you have no idea what to actually say to get that light bulb to go off. Unless you guys have some kind of crazy mind reading capabilities, which if you do, please find me afterwards and show me how you do that. It's really hard to get on the same page. So she says instead, when you wanna actually get somebody to do what you want them to do, don't try to convince them or persuade them, ask this question. The question is, what would it take? What would it take? What would it take for you to eat a little bit healthier? What would it take for you to exercise more? What would it take for you to get a little bit more sleep? When you ask this question, all of a sudden you're working in tandem. You're not trying to guess exactly what to say and how to say it to move them in the direction you want. You're working as a partner. This question is incredibly powerful and something that will help you get on the same page with the people that you serve. Which takes us to our third and our final strategy, which is all about providing support. We like to be around people who make us feel good about ourselves. My favorite example of the power of this, the power of encouragement, recognition, validation, comes from the music industry. So I'm wondering if you all know what artists like Jay-Z and Metallica and Adele and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Eminem and Tom Petty all have in common. Right? Different artists from different genres of music, different eras of time, and yet they all share a common thread. The common thread is they've all produced albums with this guy. For those who don't know, this is the great Rick Rubin. And Rick Rubin is the most sold music producer in the history of music, right? Artists from all of these different genres and types of music want to work with Rick, which is interesting because Rick is not a musician. He doesn't play any instruments. He's also not a lyricist. He doesn't write any songs. And he's not a sound engineer. He doesn't mix any of the tape. And yet, all of these artists crave to work with Rick, which begs the question, why? What is Rick doing that is creating such value for these different artists? And as you can imagine, he's very good at providing encouragement, support, and validation. My favorite example of the power of this comes from when he was working with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. For those of you who remember the Chili Peppers in the early 90s, they were kind of rap, kind of funk, kind of heavy metal, kind of rock and roll aggressive. And they were working on their third album, and they worked with Rick, and Rick was going through this songbook of all these lyrics that the lead singer Anthony Kiedis had. And there was one song that caught his attention. And he said, Anthony, do you have a melody for this? And Anthony sang this song to Rick, and Rick said, Anthony, that's like an unbelievable song. He goes, that's beautiful. goes, how come I haven't heard you in the band perform that? And he said, well, no, it's like more of a poem. It's not really a song. It's like not kind of our vibe. That's not for the band. And Rick said, Anthony, that's like a really good song, man. You really need to sing that to the group. It's beautiful. And then he said, like, no, like it's too soft. It's too sentimental. It's not what we do. And Rick said, Anthony, this is like your best song. It's awesome. You have to share this with the band. And after enough compliments and encouragement and validation, he sang the song to the band. The band agreed. It was a very good song. And this, my friends, is that song.
Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry.
All right, I'm not gonna lie. I was hoping you'd all just start singing in unison. What happened? What happened? So for those of you who know that song, that took this band that was kind of popular in the 90s and it kicked them into a whole new stratosphere as one of the greatest rock groups of history. It took Rick's ability to give compliments and give that reassurance and give that support and validation that gave Anthony what he needed to sing that song to the band. There's something very, very powerful about being able to compliment the people around you. Again, we like to be around people who make us feel good about who we are. And I'm gonna prove it to you. This is our final exercise of the day, team. I'm gonna go through an activity that I call compliment roulette. Here's how this works. For 45 seconds, it's not gonna take a long time, for 45 seconds, I'm gonna ask you to compliment as many people as you possibly can around you, okay? So you can compliment them on anything that you notice. You can say, nice blazer. I love that blazer, it is so handsome. Love the blazer. Amazing earrings, wow, where did you get those? Those are great. You can say, thank you for being so friendly or so nice. It's really great talking to you. Whatever you want to compliment on, this is our opportunity, 45 seconds. I want you to be complimentary to everyone around you. And after 45 seconds, give your attention back up here. Good luck and go for it. All right. That feels good, doesn't it? I mean, I can feel the feels from up here. You guys are smiling, you're laughing, you're hugging. This is good stuff. So, Maya Angelou, she tells us, people will forget what you say, people will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Love that quote. When you are able to be complimentary, to provide that support, that guidance, that reassurance, that validation, that appreciation, that recognition for the people around you, whew, that's good stuff. And it makes you highly connectable. So, team, here are our 3 steps to being able to build more meaningful connection in your life and in your practice. The first thing we gotta do is we gotta be mindful of making people feel seen. We gotta deliver those pro-social behaviors. We gotta manifest as many marble jar moments as we can. Then we need to get in sync. We gotta ask that magic question and make sure we're actually on the same page with the people around us. And then we gotta provide that really good support. We gotta remind people why they matter. We gotta give them that encouragement and be complimentary. These are the steps that will help make you a connection force that is gonna be unstoppable. So we just scratched the surface, guys, right? Like 45 minutes isn't a long time to give you all of the tips and tricks to how to become more connectable, which is why I have this free resource. It's really cool. It's called the Connection Kit. The Connection Kit is jam-packed with some really awesome assessments. There's a whole bunch of activities you can do. There's some questions you could ask your patients and your team. There's all kinds of things in this kit that'll help make you even more connectable. So if you're interested in this topic, and if I've inspired you just slightly to focus on your connection, feel free to scan that QR code, and then the Connection Kit will be emailed to you right after you complete the form. So team, the last thing I want to do is I want to conclude with a final story. The final story puts a nice big red bow on top of our time together today. And the story takes place here, in a hospital room in San Diego. Now, when my daughter was born, she came out early, and she came out small, and she came out not doing so well. You know, when babies usually come into the world, they're crying and they're screaming and they're full of fury. When my baby came into the world, she was silent. And nurses immediately had to rush her over to an exam table in order to help her breathe. And my wife and I sat in full panic mode next to each other, unsure about the health and longevity of this perfect little human that just came into this world. And as you can imagine, me and her were feeling a lot of the weight of the world on our shoulders. And after a few tense moments while the doctors and nurses were trying to get my baby to respond in the way that they needed, the doctor informed us that they had to take her up to the NICU. She was not doing what needed to be done. But before taking up to the NICU, the doctor brought my little baby over and he said, "Mom, you could have very, very quick skin-to-skin contact before we gotta get this baby upstairs." And the doctor gently placed my daughter on my wife's chest, and my daughter melted into her arms. And she took this huge breath in, and then she took this other huge breath in, and she went from bluish purple to bright and pink. This is that moment. My daughter was in full distress, and as soon as she hit the skin of my wife, the most important person on the planet, she completely melted in her arms. Her vitals stabilized. She didn't have to go up to the NICU. She was perfect. And this, my friends, is a reminder that as soon as all of us enter into this world, the very first thing we need is human connection. We need people to give us all of the nutrients in order to be strong and survive. And as we go along our life path, sometimes we forget just how badly we're hardwired for human connection, how we long to belong, and how we really need the people around us. So I hope, as all of you leave today, you leave just a little bit more connectable, because we are nothing without our connections. Thank you, everyone.
It was a beautiful day, sun beat down, I had the radio on, I was driving.
If you would like to meet our keynote speaker, Stephen Van Cohen, please meet him outside the Coquina Ballroom.
Little runaway, I was flying.